Everyone. Kerry Recreation and Sports Partnership, together with Cork Sports Partnership, are delighted to bring you this special feature. Kate Feeney and I, Gerald O'Doherty, are Sports Inclusion Disability Officers here with the local sports partnerships, and we're delighted to be able to bring you this.
We are delighted to welcome you to acknowledge International Day of People with a Disability. So we're going to celebrate people all over the world and their abilities. Tonight we're bringing you Jordan Lee, who is an Irish Paralympic athlete, and then we're moving over to Canada to meet Madie Wilson-Walker, who is a Canadian Paralympic athlete. And we're delighted to have them on the call to acknowledge the day that it is, and we hope you enjoy it.
Okay, well, we're delighted to be joined here today by Paralympic high jump athlete Jordan Lee. Jordan is currently ranked number 2 in the world in the WPA Paralympic rankings, as well as being ranked number 7 in the country in the Irish mainstream senior rankings. Some of his most notable achievements to date include, and I actually have to read this off because it's some list: WPA European Championships bronze medalist in 2018, 2-time WPA Italian Grand Prix gold medalist 2018-2019, WPA French Grand Prix gold medalist in 2019, and 2-time national medalist in 2019 and 2020 in the mainstream or able-bodied competition. On top of all of that, Jordan was the first one-handed basketball player to ever represent his country in the world. And that was back in 2015. Jordan Lee, welcome.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, guys, on the call today. There's been several people throughout my life and sporting career who have played a massive role. And the two people that I would like to start with really is my father and my mother, Charlotte and Mary. From a very young age, they never looked at my disability in a way that it would affect me in my life. They've always encouraged me to go on and get involved in whatever it is that I wanted to get involved in. So for that, I will always be extremely grateful to my mother, Mary, and my father, Jarlath. As Gerard briefly mentioned to you guys a second ago, before I was a high jumper, I was actually an international basketball player for Ireland in mainstream competition. I'm actually the first one-handed basketball player to ever represent the country nationally in the world. So that was my past sporting life, you could say. So my father and my mother had a huge involvement in that, in ensuring that I was going to go on and achieve my goal, which ultimately that was my goal. So they were definitely my first two massive influencers, you could say, in my life growing up. As of late, my coach, Tomas Griffin, has been a massive influencer as well. He's played a massive impact on my life, not just in sport, but in life in general also. He's a great coach, very understanding, and also very knowledgeable, and a great life mentor as well, and a great friend. So he's helped me out tremendously and has helped me become the high jumper that I ultimately am today, and as well being a good person too. Tomas's background, really, I suppose, he was a person who was involved in athletics for a number of years. He had never previously coached anybody with a disability, but he was really open and really accepting of trying new things and methodologies to our training regime, because there isn't exactly a handbook as to how to teach one-handed high jumpers. So we were going with the flow, seeing what would happen, and ultimately it has paid off in various different ways. So Tomas has been a great guy by my side also. Another
Jordan,
two guys.
Can I come in there just in terms of Tomas and your coach? And I suppose we've spoken, I suppose, on the workshop tonight in terms of barriers, and people that will be listening in will be potential future coaches in sessions for people with disabilities. What about Tomas, I suppose, was different or that made you feel at ease or welcomed?
The first thing, I suppose, was that he was just such a nice, kind guy, offering to give a helping hand. He wasn't worried about what was ahead. I think really the thing that gets coaches and new potential coaches the most about teaching people with disabilities is this fear factor. and it's the fear of the unknown. It's like anything, and it's something that I always bring it back to, is basketball. If you're playing basketball, every single person that plays on the court has a different shooting technique, whether you're able-bodied or you happen to have a disability. That's just the way it is. Everybody has their own way of doing things, and everybody's going to be different in that sense. And Tomas realized that from the get-go and never once thought it was a bad thing or perceived it to be a negative thing in any way, shape or form. So that is why myself and Tomas, we have a great relationship, and it has ultimately led to quite a lot of success, which we're both very grateful for.
And in terms of the Tomas seeking out information, so your coach looking for information, who did he go to or who did he ask to find out what's best for Jordan Lee in Jordan Lee participating in the high jump?
Well, initially it was all trial and error, trying out different methodologies, as I said, trying out different techniques in terms of the run up and the technicalities of high jump, and being able to get the mechanics right in terms of Olympic lifting. And it was trying and seeing how that was going, and then progressing on from that, getting in touch with various other high performance coach athletes from Sports Ireland and also abroad. I am a member of the Irish Paralympic team, so I'm very fortunate to have and to be part of such an elite setup where I can get some advice and get some opinions from really top quality world class coaches. But initially it was all just trial and error, and that's the way it is for everybody when they're starting something new, whether you happen to have a disability or you're fully able. And it's just learning from that and progressing on from that is the most important thing.
Yeah, and I suppose what I'm kind of alluding to is, did you ever speak up and say, that's not working for me, or this is the way I want to do it? So self-advocating, did you tell him?
It was never really a conversation that we had. If something wasn't working out, we both subconsciously knew, but it was never something that was ever going to stop us. Our attitude is very much the 100% or nothing quote that we always use across all of our social media platforms. And what we mean by that is, if there's an obstacle in your way, that's not the end of the line, that's not the end of the road. Obstacles are there to be jumped over, in which in my case, I literally have to jump over those obstacles. So it's always been a learning process, should I say. Myself and Tomas are still learning as we go by. We're bumping into new challenges all the time, but that's the fun of sport and that's the fun of life. Everybody gets themselves into bumps and challenges now and then, but it's your attitude towards those challenges and towards those obstacles that really define your true character and really shows what you're made of ultimately.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Tomas reached out to a few other coaches in terms of just getting some ideas. And I know Tomas now, the shoe is on the other foot in terms of he is that coach people are reaching out to. And I suppose just emphasizes the impact of role models, not only at participation level, but at coaching level, to be able to look up to someone and say, geez, how did you do that? Or what way did you go about it? So I know Tomas is a fantastic coach and offers a lot of insight into your trainings, and is a great man to, I suppose, lean on and ask some questions too.
Definitely.
Okay, so on that note, we are so grateful to you, Jordan, for joining the call. And I think, for people who are new to this area, it's really insightful to see what it was like when your coach had never coached somebody with a disability before, and the journey that you've come on. So thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to move international now. We're going to go all the way over to Canada. So we're going to go to London, Ontario, and we're so delighted to be joined this evening by Madie Wilson-Walker. So just to give you a little insight, we know that Madie can be modest by her nature. So I'm just going to share a little introduction to Madie. So Madie is 23 years old. She's a member of the Canadian Paralympic team for track and field. She lost her legs at the age of 3 due to meningitis, but never let that hold her back, and hopes to qualify for the Paralympics in 2021. Madie broke the T61 world record in the women's long jump back in summer of 2019 with a jump of 4.2 meters. She finished 7th in the World Championships back in November 2019, as well as representing Canada at American Pan Am Games back in September of 2019. So I suppose there's no need to say any more about that introduction, but to know that we're in extremely good hands with Madie. So we're going to ask Madie to join us on the call now. And Madie, if you can tell us, who are the key people who have influenced your career to date?
So I guess I'll start off with my grandparents. I've lived with my grandparents pretty much my whole life, and they got me involved in sports from a very young age, even though I had this disability, because they wanted me to live as much as a normal life as possible, even though I did have this difference about me. I've done a lot of different sports. I've done figure skating, horseback riding, swimming. I dabbled a little bit in golf, and then I got involved in track and field in high school. And that brings me to my next role model, which is my very first coach. His name's James Tennant. He was my grade 9 geography teacher, and he tried to recruit everyone that was always in his classes, and he convinced me to go out for track and field. And right from the get-go, he didn't treat me any differently than any of the other people on our team, and that's something that I really liked, because in my other sports, sometimes I could be treated a little differently, or I'd have special treatments, or things wouldn't be as hard for me because the coaches didn't think that I could maybe do those skills, and he never treated me like that. So I really appreciate what he did for me and how he got me started in the sport. And then my last role model that I have that I'm going to mention, my first, I guess you could say, like, I don't want to say real coach, because James was a real coach, but my first coach that I had that coached me to the national team, his name's Chris Williams, and he was my coach at London Western Track and Field Club, and that's the club I'm involved with today. And kind of the same as James Tennant, he treated me just the same, and he pushed me to a new level. He pushed me out of my comfort zone, because I was comfortable doing stuff that I had been doing, and the way he developed me a lot more as an athlete was he just pushed me that bit further, and I feel like because of him, that's why I've ended up where I am today. So.
Okay, and what do you think are the qualities of a good coach, given your experience to date with 2 coaches? So what do you think are the qualities of a good coach to ensure, there's a lot of coaches and teachers, people of influence on the call. So what do you think the qualities that as an athlete or as a young person we should try and be striving to be?
So both my coaches before me, they had never coached anyone with a disability either, but they didn't even question it. And even though my disability is quite visible, it's almost like they completely forgot about that disability and that I had that difference, since they treated me no differently. It didn't matter that I was missing both my legs. I was going to do the exact same workout. So I think that's a really good quality a coach should have, is believing in your athlete, whether or not they do have a disability or not.
I think that's really powerful. And do you think if there was something you would say to, coaches on the call, what would it be? What's your one message to people that you really, as an athlete who's come from, did you know sport was for you all this time, or was it that coach who inspired you to want to be competitive? How did you go on the pathway for being competitive as you are now?
So with my sports that I did essentially outside of high school before I started track and field, I wasn't horrible at them, but I wasn't, top tier or anything. I was just kind of average, and I wanted to find something that could be my thing, or something I could be known for, and something that I was more than just average at. And so I found that seeing through James Tennant, since she was such a positive influence in my life, and now it's basically my career. It's something that I love to do. It's something that I can inspire others to do. And I really would like to work with kids who have disabilities in the future at somewhere kind of like the Cara Center, because I know how much of a positive impact sport has had on my life, and I want to do that for someone else as well.
Okay, and I think it might be nice just to say on that note, what would you say to a young person who might be watching over the next couple of days? What's your advice to somebody who is starting out and who may at this time not think sport is for them because of their disability? What would you say to them?
So a little life motto that I always live by is never say can't. And I've lived by that since I've started in sport, even way before I did track, because there's always a way that you can do something if you put your mind to it and you try your hardest and you just never give up. You just go for it.
Okay, I think that's brilliant advice, and I think everybody on the call will take a piece on that. So I suppose to wrap up our call, we want to pose one last question to you and Jordan. We're so grateful that you joined us. And today marks International Day for People with Disabilities, as we mentioned. The theme of this year's topic is Not Every Disability is Visible. So if we think about that topic, not every disability is visible. So Jordan, can you give us an insight into what you think about that topic, or have you any thoughts or experiences you want to share?
Definitely. I suppose the most important thing would be to respect everybody that you meet. It doesn't matter what abilities or disability that they may have. And likewise, as you just said there, not all disability is visible to see. I can give comparisons to two of my good teammates and two of my good friends, Mr. Jason Smith and Michael McKillop. Jason Smith is a 100-meter sprinter who has a visual impairment, and Michael McKillop has cerebral palsy. And they're not two disabilities that you would physically see like you would with myself and Madie. So it's just about being mindful towards everybody and being respectful to everybody you meet, and ensuring that you treat everybody with the same respect as you would the person right beside you. It's all about making sure everybody's treated equally, and that's something that means an awful lot to me.
Okay, brilliant. And Madie, can I ask the same question to you too, please?
Yeah, so kind of to go off what Jordan said, I have a very visible disability, but I also have one that is not visible at all. I'm completely deaf in my left ear, and most people wouldn't really know that about me unless I tell them. And I feel like some people can be quite quick to judge about some of the accommodations that people with disabilities use, because they think that they're not like technically disabled enough to have those things because they can't see what their difference is. So with my disability, I feel like that's similar to what Jordan said about somebody who is visually impaired or has like a high functioning CP. Like those are two very abled individuals, but there's still things that, you know, that they're going to struggle with on the daily. So I think being more aware that not all disabilities look the same is like a really good thing to go by.
Okay, brilliant. And I suppose we wanted to finish the call tonight on a really positive note. And Jordan, I hope you don't mind us doing this.
I love it. But very heartwarming.
So just to give you an insight, so in Cork, we're delighted to have the Cork Sports Ability Day and Cork Sports Ability Week, which is all about increasing awareness for people even across Cork and across Munster on what they can do. And this is an image of the most recent Sports Ability Day. And on the day we had a discussion, it was called Your Voice in Sport, and we had registrations open. Jordan was kindly one of our speakers at the event. And this boy, Ali, he came just to meet Jordan. And he came just to learn about Jordan, to speak to Jordan, because he believed Jordan was his role model. He had never met somebody who looked like him. So I suppose it's just really, really important that we finish our webinar tonight, that, you know, for every child that there needs to be a role model. And tonight we draw on Jordan, and you see the smile on Ali's face that he is so excited to meet Jordan, and then they got to shoot some hoops together, and it really made, I think it actually made both Jordan and Ali's day. So we just wanted to recap on that moment for both Madie and Jordan, to know that you are role models to people. We really appreciate your time, and just to keep up the great work. I know Garrod will want to finish, but Jordan, do you want to mention anything on what you see? Surprise.
Definitely, that's absolutely fantastic. Such a heartwarming image. I remember the day back in April, I believe it was, in 2019, and Ali was in the audience and he was with his father. And I remember his father talking to Ali saying, "Would you ever go over to Jordan and say hello?" And I overheard this when I was sitting down at the front of the room. So I wanted to go over to Ali to have a conversation with him to see how he was doing. And he then proceeded to say how I was his role model and I was his hero. And for me to hear that, it's actually quite emotional, to be honest. It's actually quite emotional. Because when I grew up, I didn't really have many other one-handed people, you could say, to look up to. So that's why it meant a lot to me that I was his role model, that I was playing a positive impact on his life. And since that day, myself and Ali and his parents have actually been in touch. I'm currently teaching him to tie his shoelaces with one hand and to cut up his dinner with his food using a knife and fork. So yeah, that was a really special day, and I wish Ali and his parents all the best in the future, as I'm sure he's going to get on absolutely fantastic.
Good man, Jordan. And I was actually with you on that day as well, and the look of awe in that boy's face, but equally in yours, that someone was looking up to you like that, was very, very powerful. But it brings it back full circle in terms of, obviously you had a basketball experience, your parents were great supporters of you being involved in sport, and the impact that can have on all the ways up. So it brings it back in terms of what we're looking to promote, in terms of you can be that influence, be that as a high achieving athlete like Jordan, a coach, a parent. Just don't think of can't. So can't isn't an option in terms of what Madie's saying. If you're a parent, if you're a coach, if you're a teacher, let's see what we can do. How can we make it happen? And let the children and let the participants flourish under can.